Daniel's training in Babylon. Chapter 1. In the third years of the reign of Joachim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Joachim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. These he carried up to the temple of his God in Babylonia, and put in the treasure of the houses of his God. Then the king ordered Aspenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family, some and the nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonia. The king assigned them a daily amount food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belshazzar; to Hananiah, Sandral; to Mishael, King, and King Water. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, "I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you." Daniel then said to the God whom the chief officials had appointed order of Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Please test your servant for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servant in accordance with the one you see." So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better noticed many of the young men who ate the royal food. So the God took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. To these poor young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel would understand the visions and dreams of all kinds. As at the end of the times set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief officials presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the parents. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the magician and the enchanter in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. Nebuchadnezzar's dream. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magician, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I wanted to know what it means. Then the astrologers insisted the king may the king live forever. Tell your servant the dreams will and we will interpret it. The king replied to the astrologers, this is what I have Muhammad decided. If you do not tell me what my dreams was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your horses turned into the pairs of rubber. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gift and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dreams and interpret it for me. Once more they replied, let the king tell his servant the dream and he will interpret it. Then the king answered, I am certain that you are trying to gain him time because you realize that this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dreams, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. The astrologers answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asked. No kings, however great and might, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the kings except the gods, and they do not live among humans. This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and the men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's official, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went to the king and asked to them, so that he might interpret the dreams for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the test of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and sessions. He despises kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals the deep and spirit and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and the light dwells with him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we ask of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king. Daniel interprets the dreams. Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him. Arioch took Daniel to the king at once, and said, I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the kings what his dreams means. The king asked Daniel, also called Belshazzar, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dreams and interpret it? Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king's midst of human history. He has asked about. But there is no, there is a God in heaven who reveals the messages. Yes. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dreams and the visions that passed through your minds as you were lying in bed at these. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that you, Majesty, may know the interpretation, and then you may understand what went through your mind. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and things, thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet part of iron and part of baked clay. While you were watching, a log was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statues on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to these and become like a sheep on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace, but the log then struck the statue, become a huge mountains, and filled the whole earth. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The King, God of heaven, has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky. Whenever they live, he has made you ruler of them all. You are that head of gold. After you know, another kingdom will arise inferior to yours. Next, the third kingdom. One of bronze will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. For iron breaks had smashed everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as you saw that the feet and the toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom, yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even if you saw an iron mixed with clay. As the doors were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly bright. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united, and more than iron mixed with clay. In the times of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut off a mountain, but not by human hands. A rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. Then King Nebuchadnezzar offered prostrated before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and increase be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal these mysteries." Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire him in charge of all its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, administrator of the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. The image of gold and blazing furnace. Chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the top plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefect, governor, advisor, treasurer, judge, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governor, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrators, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image of the king. Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before him. Then the herald loudly proclaimed the nations and the peoples of every language, "This is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lille, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, the flute, zither, lille, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and the peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astronomers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to the king, "Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lille, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set up for the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your Majesty. They neither serve you or gods nor worship the images of gold you have set up." Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you are when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lille, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your Majesty. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and threw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers with So hot the flames of the fire killed the soldier who took the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the three men firmly fell into the blazing furnace. The king of Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his master, "Weren't there three men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his headmaster, "Weren't there three men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see four men walking around in the fire, bone and unarmed." The They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see four you are walking around in the fire, of unbound and unshamed, and the fourth looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servant of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the Shadrach, prefects, governors, and the royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads signed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angels and rescued his servant. They must in him and Abednego and God except their own God. Therefore I decree that the people of any nations of language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into fires of rubble, for no other God can save in this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. 이것도 있네요. 미안해. Nebuchadnezzar's dream of on a tree. King Nebuchadnezzar to the nations and the peoples of every language who live in all the earth, may you prosper greatly. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominations endures from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at home in my palace, contented and prosperous. I had a dream that made me afraid. As I was lying in bed, the myths and visions that passed through my mind terrified me. So I commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be brought before me to interpret the dream for me. When the magician, enchanter, astrologer, and diviner came, I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. Finally, Daniel came into my presence, and I told him the dream. He is called Belshazzar, after the name of my God, and the spirit of the holy God is in him. I said, Belshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy God is in you. But no mystery is too difficult for you. Here is my dream, interpret it for me. Therefore are the visions. These are the visions I saw while I lay in bed. I looked, and there before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the end, to the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it the wild animals found shelter and the birds lived in its branches. From it every creature was fed. In the visions I saw while lying in bed, I looked, and there before me was a Holy One, a messenger coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, cut down the tree and trim off its branches, strip off its leaves, and scatter its fruits. Let the animals flee from under it, and the birds from the branches. But let the stump and its roots, stones with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals among the branch of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal. Till 7 times passed for it, the decision is announced by messenger. The Holy One declares the verdict, so that the living may know that the Most High is sovereign of all kingdoms on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes, and sets of them the lowest of people. This is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had now. Belshazzar, tell me what it means, for none of the wise men in my kingdom can interpret it for me, but you can, because the Spirit of the Holy One God is in you. Daniel interpreted the dream. Then Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, was greatly perplexed for a time, and his then thought terrified him. So the king said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dreams or its meaning alarm you. Belteshazzar answered, my lord, if only one the dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries. The tree you saw, which grew large and strong, with its top touching the sky, visible to the whole earth, with beautiful leaves and abundant fruit, providing food for all, giving shelter to the wild animals, and having nesting place in its branches for the birds. Your Majesty, you are that tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extended to distant parts of the earth. Your master saw a holy one, a messenger coming down from heaven, and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump bound with iron and bronze in the grass of the field, while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the wild animals until 7 times passed by for him. This is the interpretation of your majesty, and this is the decree the Most High has issued against my lord the king. You will be driven away from the people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat greater grass like the ox, and be drenched with the dew of heavens. 7 times will pass by for you, until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its root to meet, then your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven. Therefore, your majesty, be pleased to accept my advice, renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue. The dream is fulfilled. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar 12 months later, as the king was working on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon. He said, is not this great Babylon I have built at the royal residence by my might, power, and for the glory of my majesty? Even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven. This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox, and 7 times will pass by for you. You acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes. Immediately, what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like the ox. His body was drenched with the dew of heavens until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle, and his nails like the claws of a bird. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified Him who lives forever. His domination is an eternal dominion, and His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as He pleases with the power of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time, then my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisor and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise Him and exalt and glory of the King of heaven, because everything He does is right and all His ways are just, and those who talk in pride He is earth. The writing on the walls, chapter 5. King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for thousands of his nobles and drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets. Them Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblet that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall. Near the lampstand in the royal palace, the king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. The king summoned the enchained ancestors and the divines. Then he said to these wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means, it will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain pressed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom." Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not hearing the voices of the king and his nobles came into the banquet hall. "May the king live forever." She said, "Don't be alarmed, don't look so pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the king, holy gods in him. In the time of your father, he was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. Your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him god of and wisdom like that of the gods. Your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and divines. He did this because Daniel, whom the king called Belshazzar, was found to have a keen mind and knowledge and understanding, and also the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing means. So Daniel was brought before the king, and the king said to him, Are you Daniel, one of the exiles my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard that the Spirit of the God is in you, and you who I have heard that the Spirit of the God is in you, and then you have insight, intelligence, and outstanding wisdom. The wise men and the enchanters were brought before me to read this writing and tell me what it means, but they could not explain it. Now I have heard that you are able to give interpretation and to solve a difficult problem. If you can read this writing and tell me what it means, you will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around your neck, and you will be made the third the highest ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered the king, You may keep your gift for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means. Your Majesty, the Most High God gave you Father Nebuchadnezzar's sovereign and greatness and glories and splendor. Because of the high position he gave him, all the nations and spread of every language he spared those he wanted to promote, he promoted, and those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was deposed from his royal throne and stripped of its glory. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkey and ate grass like the ox. And his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, and he acknowledged that the Most High God is the sovereign of all kingdoms on earth and sets over them anyone he wishes. But you, Belshazzar, his son, have not humbled, and though you knew all this, instead you have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You have the goblet from his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your wives and your concubines drank with from them. You praise the God of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which you cannot see or hear or understand. Silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. But you did not honor the God was hold in his hand your life and all your ways. Therefore he sent the hand the law to the inscription. This is the inscription that was written, mene tekel parsin. Here is what these words mean. Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales on the pound weight. Paras, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then at Perez's command, Daniel was clothed in purple. A gold chain was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of Babylon, was slain, and Darius the king took over the kingdom. He at the age of 62. Daniel in the Den of Lions, chapter 6. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule through the kingdom, with 3 administrators of them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrator and the satraps tried to find grounds for change against Daniel and his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man, Daniel, unless it was to do with the law of his God." So these administrators and the satrap went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever." The lawyers met the perfect satraps, administrators, and the governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decrees that anyone who faced to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now you, majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing, so that it cannot be altered in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repaid. So King Darius put the decrees in writing. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room and where the windows opened towards Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel's praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Did you not publish a decree then during the next 30 days anyone who prays to any god or human being except you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den? The king answered, "The decree stands in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repaid." Then they said to King Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, "Pay no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decrees you put in writing." He still prays 3 times a day. When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Then the men went as a group to King Darius and said to him, "Remember, you, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no decrees were edicted that the king issues can be changed." So the king gave the in order that brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king Israel it with his own signet and ring and with the rings of the nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his place and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment before being brought to him, and he could not steal it. At the first light of dawn, the king of God and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he said to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, as your God, whom you servant continually been able to rescue you from the lions." Daniel answered, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I done any wrong before you, your majesty." The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den, and when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound found on him, because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lion overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and people of every language in all the East, "May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence of the God of Daniel." For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescued and he saved. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Amen.